In this episode of the Flowerlounge Podcast, I interview Robin Sandomirksky, and she talks about the radical ok-ness during a time of change, about seeing what is outside of us as a reflection of our own creation, about this being a time to discover what we truly love and finding the answers within and not on our laptops and our phones. Enjoy. Welcome to the Flower Lounge, a place for conversations with wildly creative people and a little plant-loving wisdom to help you experience life in full bloom. I'm Katie Hess, flower alchemist and founder of LOTUSWEI, and I believe in a world where we're all living at our personal edge. Thanks for being with us, Robin.
Thanks for having me.
Where are you right now?
Right now, I am in the Lakes region of New Hampshire.
What's your daily like?
Well, my daily is kind of balancing a pull towards self-inquiry and a commitment to supporting my greater community, and also really tending to my home life. So, with there not being school, there's more child time. And as someone who really loves being a mom, I have been working with finding ways to enjoy that as opposed to getting caught up in the story of it being overwhelming. Like, I am a householder in this lifetime, and so I really like to remember to practice enjoying that my soul chose that incarnation. My dog's getting a lot of walks.
I saw a meme just last night of one dog that was like up on top of the kitchen cabinets talking down to his pet owner saying like, "No, I will not go on a walk. We've already been 50 times."
Luckily, that is not my dog. Like, he loves nature as much as I do. So every time I pick up the leash, he like runs over. He's like, yeah. I was out yesterday afternoon with him for like almost 2 hours, and
Wow.
He was just so happy. And at one point I stopped and I was watching the sunset, and he just like lay down next to me. So he's very content to have an outdoorsy lifestyle.
Yeah, I think the dogs are making out really well on this.
Oh my God, my dog could not be happier. He's like, everyone stays home.
This totally makes sense.
We go for walks. This is so great. Yeah, he's very happy. So that's my day-to-day life. Food and children and home life and my dog and rooting into nature, I find.
Yeah, I was just out yesterday, like way out in the desert. We drove like 45 minutes out of the city, and oh my God, all the wildflowers are blooming. There's like carpets of pink and blue and orange. I forgot how amazing it is to just like get out of the city for a minute.
Well, I'm not in the city, but we don't quite have the spring that you do yet. We're just like getting tiny little glimpses of spring. So
it's interesting to be out in the desert and not have all the city energy and just kind of tune into what's happening, like, okay, desert, how are you out here? Like, and to practice, because I'm so used to not trying to source information from exterior, trying to use this time especially to source from internal. But then it was like, oh, but I'm in this beautiful place. I could actually tap into this place and sort of see what the wisdom of the place is and what the wisdom of the place has to say.
Yeah.
And that was kind of an interesting practice, which I'm sure you can do anywhere. You can do in the city, you can do in your backyard, you can do anywhere, really.
Sure. Yeah. I've in my sharing over the last few weeks, I have shared a little bit about my perception that, what would I say, like the energetics of sort of everything has shifted.
Mm-hmm. You can feel it.
Yeah, so I think for some that is actually really disconcerting also, because we had become accustomed, let's say, to like, oh, here's my external world and it looks like that. But when I choose not to self-define based on my external world, I'll drop into the field of perception. But the field of perception had certain familiar qualities to it. And as humanity really shifted our behavioral patterns and the way that we're engaging with the planet, when we dropped into our perception, it felt different there too. And I think for some people, that was really, I've been communicating that my sense is, stability and control was always an illusion, but it was an illusion that was way easier to have just not that long ago. And now it's an illusion that's like really crumbled. Whatever our sense of reality was a couple weeks ago for all of us, I'm sure there's maybe one or two holdouts, but for most people in some way that has changed dramatically, in whatever ways. So it's sort of a crash course in the unknown. And it's like even the field of perception has shifted and continues to shift dramatically. And so even if you've cultivated some kind of a practice over your lifetime, when you go to like quote unquote drop in or get out of the mind and into perception, that had different qualities to it. And I think when that first shifted, I saw a lot of even the people that are like have a practice kind of go like, whoa, WTF is going on,
What does it feel like to you?
Oh, I am sort of over labels right now. I'm like, I have found that there's a sense of, I would say movement. It's like there's a falling quality to the field of perception, and we could say that was a dissolving quality. We could say it was a shifting quality. We could say it's like a falling quality. It feels to me like when I try to grab it, to name it, I get back into the tension place. And when I just go like, oh, it's okay that everything is shifting. I've always been a fan of talking about this concept. The language I use is like, can I find the ok-ness that is available to hold even when it's not okay? And right now, that's a phrase I find myself offering up a lot. And it's like, in some ways to me, where I perceive from, there's a lot of lightness. There's a lot of like, and in some ways, I think it's been very uncomfortable for humanity to experience change so rapidly. And so we are actually all connected. And so whatever our sense of, our personal sense of changes, whatever that is, kind of doesn't matter in some moments. When we drop into perception, we can feel that there is like a grabbing and a clinging and a fear and a grief that's happening in the collective. So I perceive that on some level also. Maybe more, like maybe the waves of that are a little bit stronger than what I would say I was used to if we believe in time and we go back a few years. So all those things.
It must have to do with geographical location too, because I'm thinking, wow, like I at times feel such a level of freedom and like wildness in the unknown, like being out in the desert yesterday and just seeing all these folks drive by and the guys on the motorcycles and the guys in their big trucks and, folks still out fishing and certain areas you can go and certain areas you can't go. And I watched the sun go down.
There's a lot of freedom in the unknown.
So much freedom, like wild freedom.
I was saying I have like a group of small business women that I meet with that run small businesses. And we were sitting together the other day virtually, and I was like, it's kind of great because like all of our businesses could fail and it would have nothing to do with us. Like you can't get it right in this moment. And so you're totally free to self-express. Like I can feel, I'll speak for myself. I can feel that despite what I would describe as like years of practice of, trying to deconstruct that there's a way to get things right and that I still have parts of me that were clinging to like, well, I can kind of like A+ it a little bit over here and I won't be living my most wildest self-expression, but I'll be safe. Like I still had that patterning. And there's something happening now that has just like removed that option. I can feel that there's a very human capacity to fear that option has been removed, but I can also feel like what feels like the wildness in me, or like creative life force energy in me that's like, oh God, I finally am freed to, or I feel a new level of freedom that even if I follow the quote unquote rules, everything could go wrong. And so I might as well walk down the street and lie down and drink out of the lake and not care what the neighbors think. Like I sat down in the middle of the woods the other day. I went for a walk in the woods and I just sat down in the middle of the woods and did like a 45-minute practice. Now, I'm not saying that's outside the realm of something I would have done prior to this moment in time, but I would have done way more like, what if someone sees me? Is this weird? Is it okay? And I'm just sort of like, this is where I'm sitting. We're going to do practice here. My dog sat down next to me. I could see the heron's nest. It's like one of my favorite spots in the world. And I was just like, oh yeah, I'm just supposed to sit here. I find that I'm approaching my life in so many ways that way, whether it's my concept of my business or it's relationships with friends or other loved ones or what I'm saying out loud or how I even be with my own children. I feel less like if I follow the prescription, at least I'll be okay. And I feel more like, well, okay's gone. So I might as well just like,
what do you have to lose?
Yeah, right? And I mean, and I don't want to like be flippant about that. I just want to be clear that it reminds me of when one of my best friends died. And when she died, I had this like awakening that was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna die no matter what I do. So why am I wasting so much time trying to get it right or like be a good girl, or like follow, like not be too weird. Like, what am I doing? So in the face of profound death and grief, I also experienced this wild, like euphoric freedom. And I feel a similar frequency now.
That sounds pretty great. I mean, maybe not, not all that necessarily feels comfortable to get to that point. But and I mean, I don't know if you read the last email that I sent out, but it was about how this time offers people an opportunity to really go inward and to have more freedom and to be able to live life more abundantly and more wildly and expressively. That by nature, because of what's happening, it's forced people to do that. And so,
like, I keep saying, I'm losing so many fans, but I keep saying, like, holy death practice, right? Whether it's the death of your life as you knew it, the death of your business, the death of your job, the death of the home you thought you were going to live in, or actual death of someone you love, or facing fear of your own mortality, or watching a culture die, like, whoo. And so there's a lot that to sit with in that, right?
mm-hmm, for sure.
And there's a lot of, we were talking about this earlier, but as we do the sort of the unknown and the mortality and the grief and death work, there's a lot of destabilization. And as humans who, most of us are not usually living from our most awakened, enlightened state. Sometimes we have glimpses of that when we come from there, but most of us aren't fully awakened. And so the other thing that I've been feeling in myself and working with and seeing around me is that in all that sort of destabilization, we do see our coping mechanisms and our operating systems go to offer us stability. And it feels to me like we do that by running patterns or programs that have been familiar throughout our lifetime. And it's almost like the more we sort of feel the unknown, the more powerfully the pattern can kind of pop up and go like, well, hi, I'm familiar. Let me provide stability. Well, what you thought was stable outside of you, your reality that you thought you could count on, is like in some kind of a wave pattern that you don't recognize. Let me give you a series of sensations, thoughts, or emotions that have been familiar, that have been with you through this lifetime, if not through ancestral patterning or past lives, if you believe in that. And so we can see that popping up in ourselves and others as well. Does that make sense the way that I said it? So
yeah, I mean, if you
I'll give a personal
yeah.
example. Yeah. So one day I was trying to make a decision about what I was going to do, where I was going to be. And I texted my friend and I said, I'm trying to make my decision. And they didn't have time to answer me. And at the time, my kids were with their dad, which I will confess that as a mom with the world in flux, I just as a biological human being prefer it when my kids are near me. So they were with their dad. I hadn't seen them for a day or two, and so feeling a little bit on edge because of that. And I'm immediately this whole pattern of, I take care of other people when they need me, but I don't get the same in return, started to pop up. And I got angry. Why are you not available to me? I helped you make so many decisions over the last few days. Why are you not helping me make this decision? Why am I not? And I like really kind of merged with it for, I would say, like a good hour of like stewing and, almost texting nasty things. And like, God bless whatever part of me popped up and said like, hey, maybe we should look at what's going on. And the nice thing, whether, if you're someone like me who really kind of geeks out on internal work and self-inquiry, one of the nice things about this moment in time is that we've all slowed down, and so there's a lot of space for self-work and inquiry. So, here I was alone, so I had plenty of time. And so I sat with it, leaned back a little bit. I was able to start to have my compassionate awareness engage with this part that felt not supported. And through that practice, I could see that actually that part was trying to offer my whole system something. And what the part was trying to offer my system was a sense of structure and stability. But the structure and stability was being offered by a pattern that had gotten triggered. But the compassionate awareness part of me could see that that part was genuinely upset, but could also see that she didn't have all the information. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was sort of like, I don't exactly know how to describe how the awareness happened, but I had this sudden feeling like, oh, she's so sweet. She's trying to create some stability because she can feel that there's some fear around the destabilization. And so it almost felt like, just the smallest little sense of not being supported. And she jumped up and volunteered herself as like, I'm familiar. I'm a structure you can count on. You've got 40 some odd years of believing that you're not really supported. And as soon as I felt that compassion towards her, that part of me, and offered her my witness. Oh, I see that you're not feeling supported. And I'm here to listen to you and take care of you. And I can see that you're trying to offer something to the system as a whole. It was like that frequency or that energy of I'm not supported calmed down. And I saw that it was just a moment of a coping mechanism. I feel very happy that I had that experience and that it happened in a moment where my kids were not with me and I had time to do some practice around it, because I have found in my relationships with all the people that I'm interacting with, I see moments where I see other people having that experience. Something has had their system realize that there's a moment of destabilization, or they're having that falling feeling, or they don't know what's real. And sometimes people are handling that very kind of zen and open, and other times you just see these protector parts pop up and start to just rah, and it has helped me to have had that experience myself and go oh, there's a human who is struggling, and their operating system is trying to offer them some stability. And that stability is a pattern, right? That's playing maybe not based on the reality of the now, but we're all just kind of doing our best.
Yeah, I don't know if it's this time where it's become easier or if it's a particular flower essence I'm taking, but I feel like it's become in the last few weeks so much easier to discern when we go into pattern mode. When I should speak for myself, when I go into a pattern mode, or when I see, oh, interesting, my response is how should I say this? And probably no one else sees this but me, but internally I realize oh, something is happening where I'm amplifying this experience and it's not proportionate to what's actually happening in reality. And it's become, it's almost immediately I can identify it.
I feel like I'm having a similar experience, and I'm feeling also an amplified capacity of just compassion for what I would describe as like my system. So it's like not only do I see it happening or have a conscious awareness of it happening, in the past, even sometimes I'll have conscious awareness and I'll get frustrated or I'll get irritated or I'll wish it wasn't happening. Like I'll do a pushing away energy. And now I feel a lot of this sort of more compassionate mothering energy where I'm like, oh, that's like a sad child part. Oh, this is a pattern that's worried that she's not loved. Like, oh, this is and it feels easier for me to embrace those parts and not be so reactionary and judgmental when I feel them arising. I've even actually noticed moments where I go numb. So I'll go like non-emotive. I'll go and I'll see like, oh, that's the pattern running too. Oh, look at me doing the best I can. And like what I am doing is shutting down, you know? So yeah, for whatever, you know, I'm taking many of your essences right now. So thank you. So maybe there's some similar frequency between what you've produced and offered to the world that I'm also working with, and whatever the energies are that are in the collective now. That, you know, it's always very choose your own adventure here on planet Earth. And right now feels very much that way as well. And it feels like one adventure that we can choose is to go inwards and do some self-reflection and see, are there practices we were engaging with before things started to shift dramatically that we can lean on now as what grounds us amidst a sense of vast change? And do those practices allow us to be more courageously authentic with ourselves about what our true nature is? And then does that internal work let us show up to our sort of ever widening circles of community in profoundly more authentic ways also? Like who do we become in a moment of shared collective experience like this? That is it's just plain different.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I wondered if we could do like a quick, because you have access, I mean, you have clients that you work with, so you have access to many people. And although I was working in customer service in LOTUSWEI for 5 days and had a really good pulse of like what every customer was writing to us, and also on social media, I think it's different when you have one-on-one time with people and you really get a sense of what's deeply going on inside of them. And so I wondered if we could just throw out, just so people feel normalized in the different range of things they're feeling, because I think people who've already heard me do like solo podcasts know I'm in Arizona, the sun's shining every day. I'm not feeling like, we're just not feeling the intensity of things on the East Coast. And that's okay too. And that being said, there are different things that are arising because of this type of experience. And so I was wondering if we could almost just do like a mishmash list of like things that people are facing, whether it's like fear of persecution or saying the wrong thing or being attacked or afraid of someone dying. Like, what are the patterns that you're seeing in your clients, as just like a quick wash of what's possible?
Okay. So one pattern that I'm seeing is what I would like loosely describe as really high levels of fear and anxiety. Sometimes the person can pinpoint it to a source, and sometimes it feels like it's just kind of hitting people in these like rogue waves. So I believe that as a collective, there is sort of a fear and anxiety frequency that is moving. And so I do want to normalize that, because then we can just feel it and let it wave through us, right? But when we go like, oh my God, why is this happening? We tend to lock it.
Right.
One other thing that has been happening is that I've made a distinction with a lot of my people who I know who have had a practice for a while that they feel like they're grounded in. We've worked really hard on making a distinction between I practiced and so I'm ready for this moment versus I practiced and so I'm ready to practice in this moment. Because I feel like some of my people that I work with, particularly who feel drawn to be helpers, supporters, and leaders in this time, kind of overshot right at the beginning. And it was like they felt like they were supposed to know things and like get information to a lot of people. And that really destabilized them. And it was like, there's what's happening internally, you're in your own experience, and then what you filter out to others. And those can be different, right?
100%.
So really kind of going like, if you have a perception practice that you're grounding into and you feel all kinds of like things getting tossed up and transformed and profound insight and restructuring, you don't have to immediately give that out also, right? Like you can be in your own awakening experience and trust that it will move outwards towards others at a pace that makes sense. Whatever you know that you were working on before, you are really, it's like, don't get distracted. So I have women that I work with that like were learning how to prioritize making sure that they had what they needed in order to continue to show up to their lives. And in this moment, it's like seeing them go to forget that that's what they were working on. And it's like, that's not going to work. That's going to work for like 3 days, right? And then you're going to go like super sag. So it's a weird space to go like, everything changed. And my patterning that I was working with may still have some of the same frequency, and it is imperative that we tend to ourselves. Like there's so much beautiful desire to offer loving support outwards, and there can be a sense of fear that it will be selfish to take care of ourselves when others are suffering. Gosh, like you will not be able to take care of others if you are on empty, right? So I have this like feeling, this like energetics feeling that there's like the seed of what we want to offer has to start deep within ourselves, and then it has to be offered through our systems first. And then when we're full, then it can like radiate out beyond. But our habitual patterning is to come up with a concept, put it at the edges of us, and push it out. And so I do see a lot of us returning to that patterning. So it's a reminder to like come deep within so we can source our way out. And, you know, and just to have said it again, I said it earlier, but there is like what I would call just like death practice happening, whether it's that you're getting exposed to a lot of stories about people dying, and so that's kicking up some work around mortality, whether you are afraid that people that you love are going to die, whether you are afraid of your own mortality, whether you don't actually have any personal fear at all, but it's like the collective consciousness is circulating death medicine right now. That is up. And as a society, death is not a place that we've spent a lot of time getting comfortable. So we might feel like that's challenging. And then I will say I have a lot of people who have these waves that you and I have described of feeling euphoric, feeling free, feeling a sense of joyfulness, feeling like something about like breaking out of the mold, and that feels like great. But then there's also a fear of letting other people know that you're feeling okay in the moments where you're feeling okay. So, you know, in the groups that I hold space for, I've been really practicing like radical okayness. Like, can we be okay that this person is sobbing and afraid, and this person is having a moment of just like joy and freedom and faith or whatever is kind of exploding out of them? And are we all just allowed to feel, right? And have all different kinds of experiences. So those are small glimpses of what I sense going on. And the place that I think also is wanting to be moved into is like, who are you really? There's like an inquiry of who are you really? And the other thing is, can we get less boxed in the ways that we love? Like, it feels like there's an invitation to just like stop being so careful. Not in like a practical way, but can we just love our neighbors and love humanity and love each other and love anyone who's suffering for any reason, whatever the name is, and love anyone who's joyful for any reason, whatever the name for that joy is, right? Can we, like, humans have been taught to be so protective of ourselves, and can we kind of strip that down a little bit? And that goes hand in hand with, I hear a lot of the people that I'm in contact with really lamenting this sense of disconnection that they have because they're staying in their homes, which on the East Coast is being really heavily enforced. And I have been sort of gently and quietly inviting people to open to the feeling that there are ways to feel connected without the habitual ways that they're used to socializing, right? So can you set a time with a dear friend of yours to both sit and practice and meditate, or hold love and compassion for each other and feel each other's presence in that way, as opposed to needing to like meet for a coffee, right? Which is also lovely, and let's get back to that when we can. But I feel a lot of people really feeling isolated, and it feels like there's an invitation to peel back some of the definitions and limitations that we feel and find the ways to connect in the subtle bodies that really are always available, but we in our societies have sort of stopped using them, right? I have no idea if I answered your question.
You did. Are you seeing any anger at authority? Not that one.
I'm seeing we talk about, like, in times of stress, we see like the twins of something show up. So I'm seeing like a clinging to authority and a hatred of authority, where, like, I think what might be nice would be to be sending love and compassion to authority, so that they might be. I was talking with a teacher of mine the other day about how in the society that we have now, people in leadership roles often got there because they knew how to be productive no matter what kind of stress they were under. They have sort of protector parts that are very good at being productive no matter what emotion they're feeling. And would it be possible to have some practice of sending really kind of courageous, loving energy to the powers that be, that would allow some of their patterning to dissolve, and so there could be right action? That's not what I see most people doing. I see most people are in scared child parts, and so they really want the leaders to be right and to give us answers and fix it and make it better, and I'll listen to whatever you're saying if you can restabilize. Or people who are like so mad that we're in the unknown that they're just like fiercely angry at everything, which feels like just another attempt to stabilize. Like, that's wrong. People are really interested in being right.
Responsible or irresponsible.
Yeah, like, I'm right, they're wrong. I see that on all fronts. And it's interesting because I've been really working on breaking that down in myself, because I'm seeing it in so many people. So it's like, where are the places where I go like, well, I'm right and they're wrong? And like, how could that possibly be an evolved position to take, right? Yeah, lots of like either clinging to leadership or hostility against leadership. I think I don't want to get like too far out there, but part of me thinks perhaps there are some particular kinds of energies that we're wanting to step into leadership, like that the collective wants a certain kind of energy to step into leadership, and that may be starting to happen in certain ways.
Or in ourselves. So can I share something? I was thinking like anger against authority. I heard someone tell the story of, so-and-so walked into a park. They were the only one in the park. A police officer asked them to leave and go back home. Okay, that's the end of the story. And then my inner rebel would be like, my inner dialogue would be like, well,
Katie's inner rebel.
If that was me sitting in the park, I would have been like, okay, what are the laws? Do I need to be fined? Do you want to arrest me? Like, if I want to stay in the park, do I need to be arrested? Or like, what's the real bottom line here? But like, in thinking about that silly example, because it has arisen like several times over the past few weeks, depending on which, businesses are deemed essential in Arizona and so on and so forth. Could it possibly be that there actually is a part of Katie who would like to speak up more, who would like to be stronger and more courageous, has nothing to do with whether or not I would be arrested for XYZ. I love police dearly. I used to work with them. So like, that wouldn't be an actual confrontation. But actually that there is this something that wants to come out more strongly. And whether I call it a rebel part or just simply there's something that's ready to be seen more and to be more clear about like, well, what do I have to lose in this situation, right? Yeah. So it is an interesting inquiry to sort of see what's arising, and maybe there's actually really something good about that part. as long as it's not, taking us out of control.
It's that same like little compassion piece, right? So if I can have compassion for the parts of me that want someone to have all the answers, or if I can have compassion for the parts of me that are angry, that we've been led astray or whatever I think, then can those polarities calm down and can my true nature arise? So if I can just assume that that policeman's doing his best and that other leadership person's doing their best and that person who thinks it's a conspiracy theory is doing their best, if everyone's just doing their best, what is naturally arising in me, right? Because we are not all supposed to be the same. There
Right.
is not a singular answer. It's so frustrating. Humanity is always looking for a singular answer. There just isn't one,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, like this, then I'm like, well, this whole thing is my dream, and then there's your dream, and then I dreamed you, so I'm glad you're here with me to share this dream. And everything that I pretend is defining me that's out there, it's all in here. So we can really I can go pretty far into that if in a time like this, right? Because it's so tempting to go back out and say, that is a separate thing from me and it is wrong, as opposed to that is a reflection of my
Perception.
creation.
Right.
Yeah. So if everyone out there is doing their best, how would I show up is if everything in here is just doing the best it can. If I believe that all pieces and parts of my operating system are just doing their best, and I can meet them with compassion, then can my true nature be the leader of this particular very complex entity, right? I don't have to go into the fighting twins of the forces of good and evil inside of me that are like operating at 3-year-old level, because that's the best they can do. So if I just love them, then my true nature can maybe engage. Maybe. It is frustrating. It is a moment of frustration because we want the answers to be outside of us. So we do see people getting angry, right? Humans in general, we want the answers to be out there, and we've been told that they are. And so of course we're mad.
Yeah, I mean, if you let all the mundane physicality, everything drop away, and this was just one grand experiment in how can we go more inward?
Yeah.
It's a pretty good one.
It is, that I will say, it is unprecedented in this lifetime.
Historic.
For me, yeah. And that's where you can feel that parts of us go to cling, because like we're human and it's scary when everything changes. But maybe there are also parts of us that can like exhale and soften and feel the spaciousness that arises when the unknown is all around us, And that has always been true. It's kind of an enigma because it's always been true, right. But it was easier to pretend it wasn't true.
Mm-hmm.
And now we can see how true it is, but it wasn't less true 2 months ago. Oh, jeez. Yay, 2020. Crazy. Good thing we have flower essences. So we just keep, I was writing a little bit because I've been writing a little bit. I was thinking about how it's a good time to anchor into what you love, right?
Yeah.
That's always true, but it's like there's a sense of people feeling unmoored and they don't know where they're going and they don't know what's happening. And we can really simplify it. It's a good time to anchor into what you love. Like in my walks with my dog, I've been gathering like sticks that I think are pretty and drying them out in the sunshine. Because like I love nature and I love pretty sticks. And I know it sounds silly, right? It's just so simple. So I think it doesn't have to be more complex than that for us to feel a sense of rootedness. It reminds me of, I'll circle back to my friend Kelly for a moment, who, when she was, well, I'll say in death process, when she was feeling her life force energy declining, she made herself a list of reasons that she loved to be alive. And the requirement of the list was that they had to be reasons that were just about her, not that she was trying to be alive so that other people weren't upset that she had died. And on her list was eating strawberries off her strawberry plants in the backyard and then falling asleep in the sun. That was like at the top of the list of reasons to be alive. That's pretty simple, right? So there's a teaching in there, right? It's in the vast unknown where we're, whether it's personal or collective, there's some death process happening of just having in the consciousness a relationship with death and dying. So why are we alive? Well, it turns out one of the reasons I'm alive is because they're really like pretty fallen birch branches with lichen growing on them, right? Okay, so that's fine, I love practice. So I've been doing my own practice every day, and I've been hosting a live virtual practice every day because that's a reason for me to be here. So that's just another little
doing
concept.
What you love.
Yeah,
and how much can you allow yourself to do that, what you love, and when do you find yourself getting distracted? I find like almost on a daily basis, I'll find myself, maybe I'm tired, maybe I need a break or something. Or maybe I'll check Instagram or something.
Yeah, or like
at the end of the day.
What else is happening for a lot of us, because you were asking that, is we're looking for an answer, but we can't quite figure out what the answer we're looking for is. And so it's a ceaseless looking. And it's sort of like we can't quite tell what we're looking for, so we don't stop looking. And so whether it's eating a strawberry if you have one, or picking up a stick if you are outside walking, or just like finding a patch of sunlight and feeling what sunlight feels like, taking a moment where like that is an answer or a fulfillment or a place where that's enough. Because there's a lot of what can I do and looking for an answer that we can't locate that's happening. I wrote myself a note the other day and I put it on my screen, and it said like, there is no answer on social media. There is no answer in your email. There is no answer in any text thread. There's no answer anywhere on this phone. There is no answer on your laptop. It's like, and I was having that energetics of like looking for an answer. There's no answer in any of those places. The closest I can come to finding an answer is letting myself bring the stick home, trying out sitting for 45 minutes in the woods, doing my practice, burning some incense. Those are answer places for me. So
love it. Okay, so if you want more of Robin, go to soyala.com, soyala.com. We've also done 3 previous podcasts with Robin, which we definitely recommend you listen to every single one of them. We will post links.
The other thing I wanted to mention is that I talk a lot about practice, but I do realize that there are many of us out there who either are feeling too agitated to practice on our own, or feel like we don't know what practice is, or like we're just not sure of our way. So I am currently, and for the foreseeable future, I'm hosting a free 15 to 20 minute practice every day at 1:15 Eastern. That's on my website also. So if you're like, what is this thing that Katie talks about or that Robin talks about that's a practice, you don't have to already know. You can just come show up in your pajamas and listen and see how it goes.
And we'll post links to Robin's website and the previous podcast and everything on the blog post for the podcast. Anything else you want to add?
Yes, use flower essences in copious amounts at all times. Absolutely perfect medicine for these times. Thank you for making them.
My pleasure. Thanks for being with us, Robin.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to the Flower Lounge. I'm Katie Hess, and we'll be releasing a new podcast every Wednesday. If you like what you heard, or you know someone who might be touched by our conversation, share it with them. And don't forget to subscribe. To find out what your favorite flowers mean about you, take the quiz at LOTUSWEI.com.